spinning to go live. All right, we are live, and I'm grateful and excited to have Mr. Shawn Tiberio here with me, an amazing author, speaker, business coach, entrepreneur, most of all, my real friend as well, great mentor for me. I've had the great pleasure of knowing him for 3 years. We've become chosen family. It's been really a wonderful experience. He was a 10-year Marine veteran, and he is the author of this wonderful book, Fortifying Your Mind. And when he does his leadership business coaching and retreats, I've had the great pleasure of participating in over the last few years. He really shares because he lives these 5 tactics in his real life and business. And that's one of the things I appreciate the most because he's my favorite kind of person. He actually walks his talk. He really does this stuff in real life. And that's why I thought it would be so fun to share him with you, his mindset, his life experience, how he's doing these 5 tactics in his book, and also highlight there's a few of them that are my favorite that really have spoken to me, and really helped me raise my own game, getting outside of my comfort zone with him on his retreats. And so it's such a great pleasure to have him here. Anytime we have together, I'm so grateful for. It's made such a big difference in my life. And so I want to share him with you guys today. So welcome, Mr. Shawn Tiberio. Live an example. What's possible? How are you doing today?
I am doing well. Not bad for it being Monday, the week of Thanksgiving, which most people would look at and say, "Hey, it's a short week." Maybe they're checking out already. Maybe they're already, on their travels or getting their travels started or something like that. But I'm grinding away today.
Yeah, that's what I love because one of the things that you cover in your book, when one of the first tactics, I have all my little notes in here for different pages I want to share, because that already touches on one of the things that you live and teach that I really appreciate, is how do you simplify and chunk things down. And so one of the things that I've been able to witness is, every quarter you set your goals, every week you set your goals, you really get clear about, you have in your book here too, this is a practical book, everybody. This is a workbook. You can actually use this in real life. So how do you defeat, things like procrastination from simplifying? How do you chunk down your tasks? And I love what you share about how you block time to actually do the tasks, right?
Yep.
It doesn't just get done by itself. You're
Well,
making the time right now, the week before Thanksgiving, to like do stuff you decided to do.
before we go too deep into it, I want to first thank you. I didn't
Yeah.
get a chance to say that at the beginning. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to
Oh,
come on here today. I know you got an amazing event coming up here soon. I'm excited to see that. I know you've been. This has
yeah.
been. I don't think people know too much, but there's a pretty fun little backstory behind Dr. Andrea, myself, and just how we became friends. I know you briefly hit on it. I run a number of events a year. You've been out to those, and I know that's been something that you've been trying to put the pieces in place. And COVID got in the way a little bit, and then this got, and then moves, and you had a lot of things. But I'm excited that you finally got that going, and I'm excited to hear how it all shakes out. I'm sorry I'm going to be at another event and not be able to be there. Um, but I do want to thank you for giving me that chance to come on here today and talk a little bit about the book, talk about some of the tactics and how I
Oh,
can
yeah. I should tell
help.
everybody. Yeah, because Shawn actually helped me do my first retreat, was in April of 2020, right after COVID lockdowns happened. And it was a live event and it was shut down. And so then he actually taught me how to use this StreamYard system to broadcast live. And instead of being able to see people in person. And so the whole way that we're actually having this conversation right now virtually as a Facebook live video is because Shawn showed me how to do that. And that was, creative problem solving in the face of things that we couldn't necessarily control. we still showed up. We found a way to show up. And yes, on December 3rd, it's been a passion project for me for 5 years to launch and have a fundraising event, able to do retreats like we're doing with Shawn and his team and his clients. And so this is like a really one of those sweet payoffs. And this is a nice intro to it just a couple weeks before the event to have you here because it partially, you've been my coach, for my marketing and my business growth in a business mastermind actually. And so when we met 3 years ago in our weekly mastermind, all of these ideas of what I would like to do is what we had talked about, right? Mm-hmm. So like, again, to go back into one of my favorite parts of the book is like, well, you have to have a vision of where you're going. That's the second tactic, right? Visualization. And then how do you chunk it down? What would be the steps that you would take in order to live that? It doesn't just happen by itself, not by wishing. And then how do you actually really schedule that in and then maybe get the help of accountability and mentorship, like working with Shawn to figure out, well, how do I do that if I don't have the technical experience, for example? How would I put that together? That's why I think this is so valuable because we can apply that to real life and business. So like for you, I think it would be really fun for people to hear, these are tactics that you live in your real life. You not only are 100%. Using them for your own health goals, right? Absolutely. For your own physical health, but relationships in this.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. I mean, I didn't just write the tactics in the book just to have something cool to write in the book. These are tactics that not only do I use every day today as a business owner, these were tactics that stemmed all the way back to my time in the service with the Marine Corps deployments, just the craziness of trying to live, during that 2001 to 2011 time frame, which we all kind of know what was happening during that. It wasn't peacekeeping, right? It wasn't fun all the time. There was a lot of world events that were happening, and those created a lot of chaos. Yeah. And it's very similar to, as a business owner, it's very similar to somebody that's just going through the day-to-day life, right? We just came out of another one that created a bunch of chaos. Wasn't military related, but it still created chaos and created a lot of uncertainty and just uncomfortableness in people's lives, right? And to go kind of back to the questions that you started to ask there, visualization. I in the book I talked about 5 different tactics, and there's no real order to those tactics. Yes, I laid them out in the book. Tactic 1, tactic 2, tactic 3, so on and so forth. But it isn't like you have to be doing tactic 1 before you can move to tactic 2, or you can't use tactic 3 if you're not also using tactic 1 and 2 with it. So I don't want people to get confused and think, well, you have to have tactic 1 knocked out of the way, meaning you got to be able to simplify things and battle against procrastination and know how to manage your time and expectations before you can even go to tactic 2 and know what your vision is. There really is no rhyme or reason to the order. So to your question,
they all work together. Yeah, they all work together.
100%. And I talk about that a lot, right? Sometimes you'll use a few of them. Other times you're going to use maybe 1 or 2 of them. So going back to the whole visualization component of it, in the book, I tell this story. There was a period of time in my life where I was very, very active as a triathlete. I was running a lot of Ironman and half Ironman triathlons. And this is where I noticed the tactic of visualizing really came into play, right? Obviously, my time in the service as a business, right, we use these things. But going to just the everyday life as a triathlete, I used to, prior to a race, basically like the week leading into it, I would sit down, and some call it meditation. I called it pre-race planning. I would literally sit there and just close my eyes, think through, literally walking through every granular step of what was going to come. And I know one of your favorite analogies that I used in the visualization tactic is around the apple, right? In the book I talk about really close your eyes, visualize the apple, zoom in on the apple, get all the way down, see the texture of its skin, all these type of things. And when you read that, you reached out and you said it's amazing because you're bringing emotion into the visualization component of it. So for you, right? You
And the biggest difference. Yeah,
correct. For you
that's the
going back to
the emotion is the power to act.
yes, because if you don't bring emotion into things, right? I could sit here and I could visualize a bunch of stuff. You throw something at me, I can paint the picture, I can close my eyes, I can tell you exactly what it should look like behind it. But if I don't put any of the emotion into it, or if I don't allow the emotional component, right? This is going into some neural linguistics here. We've got our conscious and subconscious side of our brain. The subconscious is that emotional component. If I just allow the conscious side of my brain, the logical, what I call the defense mechanism, right? The warrior, the security guard. If I allow that person, which is very black and white, is it good? Is it bad? Right? Kind of mentality. If I allow that to drive the ship of this visualized outcome, well, then I might not make the right choices when times get tough or when things don't necessarily go my way. Look at, trying to go back to your example here. For 3+ years now, I've been hearing you talk about all the things that you want to do. And if you led with the logical component, you had a great vision for what you were trying to create. But if you allowed logic to drive that boat, you probably wouldn't be where you're at today. You wouldn't be within weeks of getting
Oh,
this kind of
totally.
grand picture because you've been beat up, right?
The
You've been
things I
beat up emotionally
yes,
that
and
logically you would have just said, hey,
that's par for the course. That's what happens.
correct. So when I talk about visualizing, I really talk about getting deep down to, yes, you have to paint the picture, but more importantly, you have to really understand the deep why. Right, I got this poster up here. One of our lions sent me this after an event that we did. I think it was last year's event, but it sums it up perfectly, right? A lot of the tactics
Yeah.
that I talk about in the book tie back to a lion and live like a lion. Lions don't really operate logically, they operate emotionally because they've got one thing that they really kind of function around, and that is the care, the pride, the care of their pride, right? The pride around their pride, making sure that they are really taking care of those that belong to them, right? And the ultimate survival of an animal like the lion has really been off that component. They don't just live logically. Emotion really takes them day to day, and it's why they're one of the most feared animals out there. So when I say visualize, I really mean bring that emotion, understand your deep passion and the deep why. I don't care if that's as silly as you know, wanting to take a trip, and what is that trip going to look like, and where's that trip going to be, and what are you going to do on that trip, right? I'm a big fan of
And how do
rewarding
you
myself.
feel? How do you feel on the trip? Do you feel free and inspired and alive and excited and
Exactly.
enthusiastic and powerful and relaxed and ease filled? Like how do you feel on the trip?
100%, because
Then
it
you
ties
then
back
you'll
to
save the money. Yeah.
the first thing that you asked, and that was, how do you find time? How do you chunk things down? We hear this way too often that, well, I just don't have time for that, or maybe someday, or whatever. And this is just procrastination sneaking in at the end of the day. All that
Yeah,
is
because
that
it's
little
too
voice.
hard, too many excuses, not enough time, not enough
Correct.
money, right? How many negative thoughts can we come up with about why we can't do it now or can't get started or the discipline to save the money for the trip or whatever. Totally.
As simple as this, right? You made the comment, I do this on a weekly basis, monthly basis, quarterly basis, all these type of things. Probably can't read it. Camera won't focus completely on it, but I got this notepad here. It's got some things on it. This is literally what needs to happen today. This notepad sits next to me on my desk all the time. And as silly as my business partner and I, we were on our executive meeting for the kickoff of the week. He and I stay on at the end of it. He and I talked, and I found out like 4 or 5 key things that must happen between now and Wednesday, since this is a very short week with the holiday. We've got to get focused on. I got to get these things done, right? These become my large rocks. These are the boulders of the week, the high priority, the must moves, the things that have to happen, right? And we do this going back to the tactic of simplification. That's simplifying to its granular level, right? I got 4, 5, 6 things on this list. There's already like 3 of them knocked out before I even jumped on this with you. That if those get done and nothing else gets done this week, it's a successful week. Why? Because we simplified and figure out exactly what needs to happen right now. And in the book, I talk a ton around that tactic of simplification. We used to use it like crazy when we were out on operations. I just came back from Miami with a mastermind that I belong to with a bunch of other marketing agencies. And I was telling somebody they had something that needed to happen within a week. Like all hell was going to break loose if they didn't get this done. And I said, well, you need to start planning plan D, E, F all the way to Z, because A, B, C has already failed, even though you haven't executed, because chances are that's what's going to happen, right? So simplifying and realizing that the perfect plan is only a perfect plan on paper until it actually happens. And if you go with that mentality that, you know what, here's the ideal, but chances are that probably won't happen. So let me go ahead and look at the next best solution. I'm simplifying the process. I'm simplifying the problem, right? And I'm finding a simple solution to get me there.
And to maybe building some confidence too, because then you can go out into a new thing, into the unknown. You anticipated some of the challenges. It's harder for us to be shaken. It's really hard, like you said, with your visualization of the triathlon competition. Well, what can happen at this stage in this part of the competition, on this run or this swim, to really not sideline, shaken up to get what you're signing up for, maybe have some anticipated challenges you could be ready for. And that's just a matter of do we schedule the time to think, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I like the suggestion you had in your book too, like, do you make this list at the night before, and then you have a habit of making the list of to-dos for the next day, and then that's something that you have a ritual scheduling in. And then same idea, like in business or with a trip, for example, when you're going to schedule this thing, like that example with your client, this has to happen in this time frame. This is how we could chunk it down. We have to think about it and plan it. But one of the things that I really like is when that sounds like too much and overwhelm and exhausting, if you remember the emotion of, why do you want to do this? How would it feel to accomplish this? What would be the ripple effect, the result of the service that you offer? What is the impact that it could make that's motivating you? You'll sit down, right? And have the discipline to talk about it, to plan it, to troubleshoot it, to get ready for it, to say no to something else, to make the time to deal with it, right? It's easier if you want, the experience with them of the power of the win, certainty of finish the competition or the project. And one of the things, I know we have a limited amount of time, we have a few more minutes, but I think this could really help people a lot, because one of the things I like that you talk about, how do you control the self-talk, the negative self-talk that comes up? How can we welcome the challenge as an opportunity for us to grow and rise to the occasion, so we're not blocked, paralyzed by fear, uncertainty, not paralyzed by whatever, feels intimidating or overwhelming. and that you even invite us to give it a name, give the negative thought stalker a name, to give it some humor, and I think it makes it less scary. Do you want to touch on for a couple minutes, because the emotional management's really key when we feel like we're against the wall, and from your military experience too, and maybe a breathing technique like the 4x4 box breathing, because it's about controlling our emotions and then redirecting our power and resources from that calm place that's not emotionally reactive. So for a few minutes, what do you think? You can say, we got like just a couple minutes, but I think everybody can get the book and look at those chapters about emotional control. Is so vitally important for us to move forward in life.
Yeah, you're talking about good old Bazooka Betty,
Yeah,
as I
she's
as
my
I call
favorite.
her in the book, right? That's my little
Yeah,
name for my negative self talk. The voice, we all know what I'm talking about, right? The little voice in
yeah,
the back of the mind that kind of creeps in, maybe puts some self doubt, maybe puts a little bit of uncomfortableness to us, these type of things. Um, yes, I always encourage people to name it. Why? Because if I if I have a name to something, right? If I know Andrea, I know your name, right? If I'm talking about you or talking to you, it kind of diffuses things a little bit, but it also makes it a little bit more clear to myself as to who I'm speaking to, right? So when something bad comes up, I'm not just saying a bunch of bad things, right? If I can tie that to somebody, then now we've got kind of the root to it. And the same's true when that little voice kind of creeps up. I can say, "Hey, Betty, turn down the bazooka button, because this isn't going to be this way." Now, it's not that easy. I get that, right? And there's a lot of
yeah,
tactics around. I can take sub tactics just around this. Um, but the first step of this is you've got to identify that it's shining, and that it's coming through, and that's why I put a name to it, because every time it pops up, I'm like, yep, that was Betty right there, right? That was Bazooka Betty, that kind of stirred, that fired off, whatever the case might be. And one of the things that I learned back in, this was probably 2001, 2002, when I was on a naval ship out of the Pacific. We had the privilege of having one of the SEAL teams living underneath us in one of the berthing areas, and I got to spend a lot of time. It was back in the Call of Duty, or not Call of Duty, Halo, right? Which is the pre game of Call of Duty. Xbox, the game of Halo, was really, really big, and we used to link our Xbox together and play against these guys all the time. But through that, we started to build some relationships and have some fun with them. And I was talking to one of them one night when we were just hanging out, playing spades, dominoes, this type of stuff in the chow facility. And I said, "Hey, when you guys get into really bad situations, right? I mean bad, all hell's breaking loose. It just seems like this is it. It's over. How do you keep yourself calm? How do you find the internal peace to shut down all that craziness and all that negative self-talk and all that possibility that this is it, life's over, and still move forward with the mission at hand?" And they threw something at me that was, quite frankly, I thought they were kidding, because it was so simple. Going back to
yeah,
simplify, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
when I started to try it, when I started to implement it, I started realizing this works no matter what it is, right? At my
yeah.
events, I love to throw people into really uncomfortable situations. You've done this a ton of times with me. I throw you in freezing cold water. Nobody in their right
Yep.
mind wants to just voluntarily get into freezing cold water, right? What's happening? Betty is firing off, right? That's the last thing I want. I want to be warm. I don't want to be freezing. I don't want to get in that thing. It's gonna make me shiver. It's gonna hurt when I get out. All these type of things. And I teach this. It's called the 4x4 method. And this is what the SEAL teams taught us. And it's simply this: you inhale for 4 seconds, you hold your breath for 4 seconds, and then you exhale over the course of 4 seconds. And you repeat this 4 times. And ever since I learned that silly, simple little tip, I see it happen all the time. Sometimes I do it without even realizing I'm doing it until after it's already kind of happened. And then it triggers, oh, that was 4x4 that I just did.
Yeah, instinctually now, which is great because of the repetition now. You can always go to that automatically under
Correct.
stress.
And I won't even get into the science on why it works. You've got the
Yeah,
DR in front of your name. I'll let you handle that part of
yeah,
it. But there's a
yeah,
lot going on in our body when we do something as simple as bring in oxygen like that and hold it. But more importantly for me, what I've come to see, and a number of the people that I've taught this to now and have used it, and they keep coming back to me and saying, I've the 4x4, the 4x4. What I think it does is it brings you to an element of calmness, because you have to think to do this initially until it becomes
correct.
second nature, right? You physically have to think. A lot of times, the first couple times you try this, you're going to be counting. You're going to inhale and you're going to be counting to 4. You're going to hold your breath for 4. You're going to then exhale and you're going to be subconsciously counting to the number 4 to make sure that you're doing this. And how
Which
many
is
times did I
great
do?
because you'll stop thinking about the crisis.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it brings you to a state of calmness and fresh mind, right? To be able to then move on, because you, and I know we got to wrap up. We don't have a ton of time, but going back to what I said earlier, if you've got really strong emotion around what you're focused on, or if you got really strong emotion from a negative standpoint, either way, good emotion, bad emotion, we want to control that, because we can't operate all the time from extreme happiness, just
Correct.
like we can't operate from extreme sadness or frustration. We've got to learn to bring ourselves back to
Right.
center in each of those situations, right? So the 4x4 doesn't necessarily only work if it's really bad. You're stressed, you're irritated, you're pissed, you're ready to snap someone's neck. No, it also can work when you're really, really excited, you're amped up, right? The adrenaline's really pumping, you're this is amazing, but I can't figure out what to do next because I'm just so, enjoy using that to
Yeah.
kind of ground yourself, recenter yourself, bring some clarity, so that then you can you can move on. And that's why I started this whole kind of podcast by saying there is no order to these tactics, because sometimes you need to use that. You got to get
Right.
control of the emotion to then be able to simplify, or you got to get control of the emotion to get a better clear of your vision. You got
Yeah.
to get, control of the emotion before you can do this over here.
Yeah.
So obviously I could go forever on this, but I know we've got a set amount of time here today.
Yeah. Because it's so practical. So even in this short amount of time, which I really appreciate that you spent, ideally, this is a benefit to us and anybody else that engages with this material and that 4x4 box breathing, because this is so practical. We can harness ourselves, focus ourselves, and move forward in life, regardless of any of the challenges, negativities, fears. Stop making excuses, take full responsibility for what we can do, and do what we can do, be at our best. Because it doesn't matter, whether it's a war situation, economic crash, personal challenge, health challenge. We all got to deal with some, right, negative thoughts, some worries. Sometimes it's not just our own, it's other people's poo-pooing on our whole idea or plan for our life too. And so it's so simple but so effective. If we just did that one thing in the face of bazooka, mine's negative nuclear Nancy, we don't have to let it shut us down when we face a challenge. And then what I love, I'll leave on this note too, because we can actually welcome it as an opportunity, to
Mm-hmm.
prove to ourselves that we can take control and that we can move forward no matter what we face. And I appreciate your friendship, your mentorship, all that you have to offer, and also the accountability too that you offer all of your clients and all of your events. And you know the accountability is helpful too. You can be around some people that will actually encourage, you know, and not just go
Absolutely.
negative out. People that will build you up and celebrate when you accomplish things. So in the book, if you other people that you're going to do them. Maybe you'll be accountable to do it, to keep your ways of other people as an extra motivation when we feel like giving up when it's hard. So thanks so much for your time today. I know you got to go. And I put ShawnTiberio.com/Fortifying Your Mind, the title of the book. And I really hope I impressed upon everybody. This is a practical workbook. This is for real life. You take actionable habit steps with this book, and it really can help you the rest of your life permanently by just getting to the basics of the 5 tactics and just using them. It's not really more complicated, 100%. Is it?
No, and I mean, I'll end with
maybe
this.
Maybe we need some box breathing.
Anybody that reads the book is, you're going to read it and you're going to go, this isn't earth shattering. This isn't anything new. This probably isn't anything that I haven't heard already. As far as the overarching message, right? And that's the point of it. It isn't about having a bunch of new things. It isn't about the next flashy topic. Sometimes it's just getting back to basics and really understanding that these core 5 tactics have been around us and been in, something that many of us have either heard or used or know with no real conscious realization around it. And when you bring the consciousness side of that to it and put a plan with it and actually become, focused on actually using them, not just allowing them, then that's when you start to see the real impact that they bring.
Yeah. And then, being with other people like you that are actually living them out and consistently using them too. That's what's really most important. We can be an example for each other. Like, are we showing up at least doing the basics? That's the big question. So let's do it.
Absolutely.
So thank you. Thank you so very much.
Well, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, my pleasure. You take care. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you for your service. Thank you for who you are as a human being. Thank you for showing up for me. Thank you for how you've enhanced my life so much. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. I appreciate you.
All right. Bye, brother from another mother.
We'll see you.
See you. Bye. I'm really grateful for your time today too. And what I hope the most is that this can be a practical benefit to you as well. And I look forward to the better life and world that we can all create together by using the basics, showing up for ourselves, and doing what it is we were called to do. So thank you so very much for your time today. And I'll look forward to seeing all of you soon. I do have my December 3rd fundraiser for my nonprofit foundation, Chillax Om Foundation. I'll be able to offer wellness hour, community acupuncture, and self-care training. I invited Shawn today because I like to teach some of the things in his book to people that participate in the scholarship wellness hour program. Gives community acupuncture and self-care training, which also includes mindset training as well, and breathing techniques like the box breathing, so that when we're faced with stress, we have things that we can do in response to our stresses and take control of ourselves and take control of our actions and our lives and not be emotionally reactive, making usually bad decisions for ourselves. So that's what all this is, contributing to us all living a better life by getting some simple practical tools like these tactics, making time for ourselves to evaluate our lives, make plans, and also use tools like the 4x4 box breathing from the Navy SEALs that they shared with the Marines to control our emotional reactivity, our stress. When we're faced with challenges, we can overcome it, be calm, and make good decisions for ourselves. So this is a taste of some of the stuff that I will be able to share to the scholarship patients that you all will pay for by supporting my nonprofit foundation that has created this Wellness Hour program for people to experience the acupuncture and start using these kinds of tools that Shawn talked about today and really graduate into their own better self-management that's going to create a better life. So I thank you for your time so very much. And I hope this was a benefit to you. That's always the goal whenever we spend time together, that you come away with something for real that you can use, that's practical, can help you improve your life, that you can share with other people. And so I'll look forward to doing more of that with you all soon. Have a beautiful, blessed, happy Thanksgiving. I'm grateful for this time that you've spent, and I really hope that you feel value from it as well. And I'll look forward to seeing you all again soon. Bye-bye.